Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a digital marketing and communications expert and a storyteller from Faridabad, India, Deepmala. Deepmala, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Deepmala is the founder and chief executive officer of the Visual House. She has received awards from 15 national and international film festivals. So, Deepmala, before we talk about the Visual House, a few questions for you personally. Tell me a little bit about your own journey and what was the inspiration to transition from a commerce background to the world of media and storytelling?
Yeah, right. I would say that, it's all about the vision, purpose, and opportunities.
Mhm.
So let me tell you, I was always clear that, I want to become a successful person. And that point of time, I definitely did not know what does it like to be a successful person.
Mhm.
And I still don't know, but still I was an ambitious person. I wanted to do something for
Mm.
myself, for my family, so that they should be also feel proud of. So I never knew that this is what I want to do, but yes, I wanted to do something big, right?
Mm.
So that was absolutely clear in my head.
Mm.
So vision was clear, and
Mm.
there was a purpose why I want to be a successful person, why I want to do these things, right? And opportunity. So मेरे को ऐसा लगता है, I feel that these three things are really really important.
Mm.
Opportunities also, I never took opportunities for granted.
Mm.
Whatever comes in my way, and whatever I see opportunities everywhere.
Mm.
So that is how we started to grow. When I worked as a production house as an intern. This was again an opportunity, right? A lot of people had applied for this opportunity, this position,
Yeah.
but yes, I got a chance to work as an intern, then an
Mm.
assistant director, then associate director, then independent director with another production house for almost 8 years. And at
Mm.
that point of time, I learned to make films and creative products. At that point of time, I felt that, anyhow, I wanted to become, do something. So let's just start a visual house. The TVH was born. Uh,
Mm.
but that time we were just a production house. We established as a production house and side by side explored different verticals. We adapted with the time, with the demands of the audience, the market, and all of that. So
Mm.
I am a continuous learner. I always keep growing and learning and
Yeah,
evolving and exploring.
absolutely.
I felt that this is the hour of the need, the need of the hour, that
Correct.
we have to do something like that.
Well
uh,
said.
right, so that is why from filmmaking to creative agency and all of this, so there we are here and competing with the biggest agencies. In fact, we were competing with the biggest agency, we still are. We can just say that we are around and we'll be around and doing things different ways and differently. That's
Mm.
always try to do that,
Very
right?
well said. Very well said. And tell me a little bit about the founding story of the Visual House
Yeah.
and what was the reason it was created.
So I'll tell you, like I said, I started with the vision, right? So I was always clear what I want to do. So
Hmm.
vision, visual house is all related. But my first boss, when I was working as an intern and as assistant director, he
Hmm.
suggested the name Deepmala. You always say that you want to do something of your own, and all of that. So why don't you just try to build in this industry only, and whenever you will start, just name it the visual house, because you're creative, positive, and productive. So
Hmm.
it just stuck in my head. I felt, wow,
Hmm.
this is really great. So
Hmm.
of course, emotionally, mentally, the visual house was born long time back, more than 20 years back. But yeah, when actually I had I wanted to start my own, so I said visual house was anyhow clicked into me, into my heart.
Hmm.
So yeah, so visual house started like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. So let's talk about the Visual House then. And tell me about the scope of work that you handle at the Visual House and what are some of the core elements that define a successful communication campaign?
Sir, in terms of the services, like I said, we were always exploring new things. We were adapting with the time. During the time of COVID, we felt that, we can't go for the shoots. So
Hmm.
making is just a side thing. So then at that point of time, I started working on the communication campaigns, working on the animated videos,
Hmm.
whatever we could develop remotely. And, we learned that, it's not only the filmmaking. Uh,
Hmm.
Communication is important,
Yeah.
and maybe it was in my core. And my clients used to ask me, if you can make a film, you can make this also. So it was a practical learning,
Hmm.
working on the communication
Hmm.
products, developing
Hmm.
communication campaigns.
Yeah.
So we learned practically while working. I would say that it was all practical and around me. And when it comes to communication campaigns, I mean, this is how we started and
Hmm.
got into communication things. And I always say that we have to understand communication first,
Right.
right?
Right.
So whatever messaging I have to create, first I have to understand. Communication is a very simple word, right?
Hmm.
I need to really, really get into this, what exactly and how. So I feel that, we need to know as an agency, as a creative person or a campaign
Hmm.
person, that communication means that, we need to connect with the audience in the right way,
Hmm.
the way that they want to hear and listen, right?
Hmm.
In the inconsistent way, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
whether I'm working on a campaign for a brand, or I'm working on a social campaign, or I'm working for any awareness campaign, right? I have to understand who's my target audience,
Hmm.
what kind of environment I have to create, right? What will they hear? What
Hmm.
kind of messaging they'll understand? And
Hmm.
basis that we create and work on communication campaigns, and create products or assets. We call it in our language, the assets and all of that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's how we develop any communication campaigns.
Hmm.
To
Okay.
understand the audience, we have to understand the messaging.
Very well said. And how do you balance artistic storytelling with client objectives in your films?
See, I always say this to my team and the people around me when we discuss these kind of points.
Hmm.
What works is that emotions.
Hmm.
Emotions. I mean, people drive emotions, and emotions drive people.
Hmm.
If we have a real connect, real
Right.
stories, compelling characters,
Hmm.
the real characters, it always works.
Hmm.
So I mean, authentic storytelling, with powerful messaging, with the real characters, always
Hmm.
work. So
Hmm.
whether I'm working for a brand or any social messaging, I always say, just be real,
Hmm.
just make it simple.
Hmm.
That's it. That always works.
Very interesting. But, when people talk about socially driven content,
G.
they say it's a very different set of challenges.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you tackle some of these challenges when you are producing socially driven content.
See, like I just said, actually, in the same way, it's a challenge.
Hmm.
So anyhow, it's always there, and we have to just learn from the challenges, whatever
Hmm.
we face.
Hmm.
I'll just give you an example. We were working on a project with the government. When you work
Hmm.
for the government, it is a complete different challenge you face, right?
Absolutely.
When you work with a brand, it will be a complete different set of, I mean, mindset and the people that you're dealing with, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So everybody asks the same thing. How do you make a campaign in a different way? Right?
Hmm.
Everybody asks the same question.
Right.
How you can do things differently?
Hmm.
I always say that, I'm not going to do anything differently. I mean, we say that we will do it, right? But at the end, I have to, first step is, whatever challenge I face, I have to understand the
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
That is important. The people
Right.
I'm dealing with, the people I'm creating messaging for.
Hmm.
If I understand both the things and deal with them, deal with the clients that I'm working with, the deal with the people that I have to create messaging. So I
Hmm.
have just need a strategic approach to balance the thing,
Hmm.
and then just come out of this. So that's
Very
what I
interesting.
always do. I have to understand people first, whether
Very
it's my
interesting.
client or the community or the audience that I'm
Yeah.
creating message.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. And you do a lot of work in the area of digital marketing. But over the years, what are some of the trends you have seen in digital marketing that have most impacted your approach? And these days, of course, the whole world is talking of AI.
Yeah. See, I always say, like earlier also I mentioned,
Mm,
you have to adapt with the time.
mm,
I'm very fond of, technology.
mm,
Let me tell you on a personal level, but I know what technology helps you with and how,
mm,
right?
mm,
In today's world, the generation that we work with, we call it Gen Z, right? So they want to have shortcuts, right?
mhm,
So AI is very helpful. I always say that, but you need to be smart enough to understand
mm.
how to use AI,
Right.
where to use AI,
Mm,
right? You can't be just copy and paste everything and just put it on emails and prepare the writing and all of that. AI
mm,
is not an emotion.
mm,
AI will not give you a storytelling.
mm,
Storytelling comes through your mind only, right? That's I always say, and I'm not sure people would agree with me or not because there's a different world these days in digital world. I mean, I know what you exactly want to say. Uh,
mm,
Technology is really important, but at the same time, I want people to understand how to use the technology. That is one.
mm,
Secondly, the trends, like I said, we have to, you know, go with the time. We have to go with the.
mm,
So these days, if my people, my audience understands social media well, I need to work on a content or with the content in a way that is smarter than my audience, right?
mm,
So, because in 3 seconds, you have to engage them. In 3 seconds, maybe, that is the deciding factor also if you're selling the product.
mm, mm,
You have to engage your people. So,
mm,
there are different ways, there are different, audiences and segments that we work with.
mm,
We use the technology where we want to use the technology, and
mm,
we use our mind where we should use our mind.
mm.
So, it should be the balance between both.
Well said. Well said. But when it comes to creating authentic digital narratives that resonate with today's audiences, how do you do that? And can you share an example? I mean, you don't need to give any names, of course.
See, there are different case studies we read, right? There are, I mean, in terms of campaigns, if you talk about, I
Mm,
always that's not a digital campaign, but I'm very fond of Amul communication
mm,
strategy.
yeah,
They started in 1980s, I guess, right? If I'm
even
correct,
earlier. Yeah.
well, maybe earlier.
Mm, mm,
But there was a one mascot, one girl. They still using the same girl in a
correct.
digital campaign also, or
Mm,
maybe in the outdoor campaigns also.
mm,
But consistency really sells. So
mm,
this example really gets into my head. The way they have built
yeah.
their communication strategy, the way they had used this girl in different ways in different
Mm,
campaigns.
mm,
So the messaging is different, but the story remains same. The
yeah.
character remains same.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that in today's world also it works if you are consistent, if you are confident about the things that you are doing. It
Mm,
always works. I don't think that it's a very different or challenging thing.
correct.
you know
Correct.
I
Correct.
feel that whether this is an Amul example or agar recent examples ki baat kare, I always inspired through Nike campaign.
Mm,
It's just one simple line, and then
yeah.
they're sing in different ways. So earlier also I said communication is about very simple thing. We do not need to use the
I
complicated words.
agree.
We do not need to use very complicated messaging. It's very
Absolutely.
direct, very straightforward,
Yeah.
very simple
Yeah.
messaging. If we do
Absolutely.
that, it works.
Very well said. There's also in our country a very, very rapidly growing tier two, tier three market or rural market as well. How do you approach strategy for communication differently from urban markets and rural markets?
It follows the same rule. You have to
Hmm.
understand your audience. I know my urban market, I know my rural market.
mm,
I have to come up with a campaign, what works in the urban sector, what works in the rural sector.
mm.
These days, in rural sector also, we know that, people are using social media a lot, whether
Right.
this is YouTube, whether this is Facebook,
Mm,
Instagram. People are not very educated, but I see that, the villagers, the farmers, they are, they're listening to the stories or a podcast
mm.
on YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So we have to understand that. What do they understand? So initially, also, same thing I said, it is a very simple rule. Understand your people, understand your environment, and then create the content for that for
Mm,
particular platform also,
yeah.
right? So for rural scenario, yes, YouTube actually really works a lot. Facebook
Mm,
works a lot. Apart
mm,
from that, there are, on ground campaigns we do. Maybe audio announcements, the folk shows, the wall paintings, the digital wall paintings. We've been doing all of this, right, for a long time. So
mhm,
what we in which and whichever way they want to understand, and they will understand better, we follow the
mm,
same pattern.
mm,
In fact, I was very surprised when I got to know in the rural setting, the older people also
mm,
trying to learn the chatbot, the WhatsApp chatbot thing, WhatsApp messaging. That was
mm.
very, very, surprising and shocking for me. I'm not saying in the remotest areas of the country, it's the same,
Yeah.
but again, every state is different, every region is different, every people, have a different mindset. So basis their mindset, basis their understanding,
Mm,
we have to follow the path.
mm, Amazing. And based on the work that you do with so many different brands, do you see any misconceptions brands or brand managers have about rural audience?
See, misconceptions are everywhere. Uh, yes, because we are sitting in urban setting, we don't go to the remotest areas. We
Mm,
just do the desk work and try to understand people.
yeah.
Right?
Mm,
There was a time when we actually used to do the in-depth research, the
right.
focus group discussions, right?
Mm,
FGs, बोलते हैं हम लोग, qualitative and quantitative analysis, all of that. But I
mm,
feel this is the time when we are using technology a lot and not going to the ground, not understanding people. These are the misconceptions that we will sit here and we'll do the research and we'll create the content. So
mm,
brands and marketing agencies are doing that, which I'm completely against of. I
mm,
always say that, go to the ground. I've traveled a lot in this profession. I got an opportunity to travel a lot and see the remotest areas of the country. I know that, uh, on ground realities are different.
mm.
We actually see the world, I mean, face to face, it's completely different. We
Very
get
interesting.
clarity. And
Yeah.
when we have clarity, we can create content or stories in a way that they understand. So I
Mm,
think we should not be sitting here, or, the brands and the marketing managers sitting here and using the chat GPT or any AI tool and do the research.
yeah.
Try to go to the ground,
Yeah.
try to actually see the picture,
Mm,
what exactly works,
yeah. Yeah.
and work upon it.
Absolutely. No, you've told me that it's very important for us to understand the consumer. But I wanted to ask you a question, other than, of course, understanding the consumer, is that how does branding change when the objective is humanitarian impact versus commercial success?
Yeah. See, branding and marketing both are different, right? Um, when we work on any campaign,
Hmm.
we have to see what is the objective. Are we only doing the branding kind of a thing, or we
Hmm.
market this,
Right.
right? So
Mm,
you have to understand the difference between both.
mm,
Okay. When we work on any humanitarian concept
mm,
or any humanitarian campaign, right?
mm,
So, real stories, the real case studies, we have to find out.
mm,
We have to then create the story in a commercial way also.
mhm,
For example, I am right now working with a brand which actually serves in tier 3 and tier 2 cities.
mhm.
I can't name it right now,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Mm,
So they said, we are working with pro kabaddi players. Okay.
mm,
So we said, okay, we understand the target audience is tier 2, tier 3 cities. And
mm,
my main player is the protagonist is these players.
mm,
They have their own way of speaking.
mm,
They have their own style of speaking and giving messages, right?
mm,
It becomes difficult for us to take out the messaging through them, right?
mm,
But at the end, they will connect to my audience.
mm,
At the end, my audience will understand with them and through them,
mm,
right? That really matters.
mm.
So there are several examples I can give,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not sure whether I'll be able to. I mean, I've
No,
answered
no,
your
that's
question.
okay. So I have time for two more questions for
Sometimes we
you.
talk, and then we just went into other direction. I have a
Yeah,
lot of examples, but yeah, I don't know.
that's okay. I have time for two more questions for you, Deepmala.
Thank you.
What does it take to build a brand when it comes to sensitive sectors like health or gender rights? And
Hmm.
you don't work in this area as well.
Hmm. Sorry, please come again. Again,
I'm saying that you've done work in the areas of
health.
health or gender rights. What does it take to build a brand in sensitive sectors like these?
See, first of all, we don't create a brand in these sectors.
Hmm.
We do create a messaging, right? So, but at the same time, we have to integrate brand in a subtle way, right? Very subtle way, not
Mm,
very direct way, right?
mm,
But at the end, the integration of brand with the storytelling
mm.
in these sectors really an important factor, and that is what we try to do. We have
Right.
really worked in this sector a lot, whether this is gender, maybe violence or discrimination with
Mm,
organizations. We've also worked with in health sector with different campaigns, whether it is HIV, malaria, TB, and all of that, right? So we our main objective is to create messaging,
mm,
and side by side, if we have to integrate brand, it has to be very subtle,
mm,
very subtle,
mm.
right?
Okay. And my last question for you. Tell us about the making of Ek Jhalak and what made it so special.
Oh, it's always special, and it will be special because
Hmm.
that was my first OTT project, I would say. And but I always say, if you don't get an opportunity, you create an opportunity.
Hmm.
That is a perfect example. Ek Jhalak is a perfect example.
Mm,
We've been working hard for working for clients. I was tired with my mindset. I was in a very direct word, I would say I was fed up that I'm working with for the clients only, working on the campaigns, working on the films. Where when will I make a film which I want to make and
hmm.
I would love to make?
Right.
We create this opportunity. TVH has produced the film.
Mm,
TVH has directed and written the film. I had written the film and directed it. We had a very busy schedule, but still we pull this off. And I since it was first project, I mean the huge project, I would say, I was not sure any known artist would agree to work with me on this.
mm,
And I was surprised, wherever I had sent this story, every artist I had approached for this project for,
mm,
they said yes.
mm,
That was a milestone for me. And I wanted Amit Saad in this film. And he read the story. I went and discussed the story with him. He was very sweet. He was very calm. He said, "Wow, this is really good. I really want to be, yeah, part of this project." And when he said yes, I was so happy and confident that whatever I'm doing, whichever way I'm doing, I think we're
mm,
in the right direction. We pulled this off in a very tight timeline. He had given me 5 6 days for the shoot, and I mean, we had to work day and night and deliver it. And then I wanted to distribute it on OTT platform. We got 15 16 national and international awards for the film. So basically we chose our own path. We
mm.
created our own
Yeah.
opportunity. That is why this film is very very special, and
Mm.
this will always be special for me.
Fantastic. And on that note, Deepala, I just want to say thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I think you covered some great ground on not just communication, branding, but also on digital marketing. And then you told us about Ek Jhalak. Thank you again for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast. A platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.